We're going to shift gears. Biotechnology is not just about treating patients, treating ailments. Biotechnology, actually, the longest history of biotechnology is about things like feeding people and producing energy. This little bug, and this is another bacteria, this bug is a bug that's used as a catalyst. It lowers the energy barrier to make something. And the thing that this bug lowers the energy barrier to make is hydrogen, which we hope, when you guys are my age, will be the fuel and the most common fuel used because it's so clean. So we can manipulate bacteria to help make hydrogen. Biotech may hold the key to our energy crisis as time moves on. These are E. coli. They live in all of us, in our guts. They live in some hamburgers, but not intentionally. We can very easily genetically modify E. coli to make E. coli make all sorts of proteins and for therapeutic purposes, but also can make biofuels. So that's pretty impressive, manipulating biology to make fuels that are still dependent on carbon, but dependent on carbon that we make as opposed to carbon we pull from the ground. Here's another source of carbon for energy. That's algae. It's a freshwater algae. It grows very efficiently. It's converting light into carbon material, carbon-based material that can be used for energy. Here's a source of energy we use today, corn. Corn, as you know it on the right. What's on the left? Left is native corn grass. 10,000 years ago, that's the only ear of corn you could have gotten. That skinny, little, pathetic corn stalk there. We have so heavily bioteched corn, we've now made these ears that we see here. Corn like this, that we enjoy in the summer and that our cattle enjoy, couldn't survive without humans. It wouldn't survive in the wild. It needs humans to cultivate it. It is a biotech product. And as you know, it's converted into ethanol, and ethanol is used to supplant gasoline. And we use it as energy. We use it for energy. I'm now going to do a little demonstration to give you a sense of how much energy we can actually get from corn and from carbon. For those of you who can't see, I've got a little PVC funnel here. And what I have in it is a really exotic fuel source. And that's cornstarch. It's around Thanksgiving. We use cornstarch to thicken our gravies. Hard to imagine it would be a source of fuel, but in fact it's a fairly powerful source of fuel. Excuse me for a second while I prep another demo. What we're going to do is cornstarch is not inherently flammable, but if you get the cornstarch to oxygen ratio just right and you give it a little bit of ignition, you'll get a little bit of a flame. I dropped some cornstarch on the candle, so it may take a little while for the candle to ignite. Any form of combustion actually needs also a spark, something to ignite it. So I'm going to prove to you that cornstarch, corn, a biotech product, is a source of fuel. I'm going to have to, you'll have to pause for a second because while cornstarch is a great fuel, it's also pretty good at putting out candles. And we'll just manipulate this a little bit so that the candle is lit. Because if the candle's not lit, you'll see a very nice powder, a cloud of dust that is cornstarch, but you won't see the power of that cornstarch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add one ingredient, my own air pressure, my breath. I'm going to blow into this container. Cornstarch is going to rise. For those of you who don't believe, I put some cornstarch in there. That is, in fact, cornstarch. I don't have a secret ingredient I put in there that makes this experiment work. We're going to see if we can actually get cornstarch to burn. Everybody focus, because if you don't see the flame at the first time, I may have to repeat it. Let's see if everybody can see this. Who would have thought cornstarch was the most dangerous experiment I did today? Behold the power of corn. It usually puts out the candle. We'll do it one more time because it is pretty cool. And to make sure, see if we can put out. We actually consume all of the oxygen above the candle. One more time. There we go. You can actually scale this up or down. It's a great science demonstration. Again, it tells us the inherent power in carbon-based materials. From fire to ice. We freeze things in biotechnology a lot more than we heat them up. And in fact, we freeze things for multiple purposes. One of the reasons we freeze things is cold things don't move much. So if we freeze a molecule, for example, this is a protein molecule that's been cryo-imaged. It's been held still by lowering its temperature, and we can image individual atoms in this protein. This happens to be from a herpes virus. It's the gift that keeps on giving. We can also use cryo techniques on a macro scale. Here we've actually frozen a tumor in a liver to remove it. By freezing the flesh, we limit the damage to a surrounding flesh. We've also limited the chance that any of those tumor cells will leave the surgical field and make it to the rest of the field of the surgery. We mostly use cold and liquid nitrogen to store stuff. And these are the most famous cells in all of biology. They come from a lady named Henrietta Lasker. She died in 1951 from cervical cancer. These cells are called HeLa cells. H-E capital L little a. HeLa cells. And we have stored and preserved these cells for almost 60 years and used them in experiments to find new treatments for cancer, to understand how cancer spreads. HeLa cells. It was only in 2000 that her daughter actually knew that her mother had donated these cells and that they've been used for the previous 40 years in experiments in labs around the world. HeLa cells preserved on liquid nitrogen for 60 years. I am confident that when you guys pursue careers in this field, some of you will work with HeLa cells 30, 40, 50 years from now. It's an amazing testament to what this woman did, the fact that she was willing to donate, and to our science, that we were able to use and reuse this particular cell line. What I'm going to do is try to demonstrate how we can store things. For those of you who don't know, this is a dewar of liquid nitrogen. That's what we store cells on. I'm going to just top the liquid nitrogen off, because what demo would be complete without a little bit of liquid nitrogen? And again, as I've done before, we're going to use balloons as models for cells. And in this case, we're going to use these long, skinny balloons. Think of them as long, skinny cells. And we'll see how we can store them. In fact, liquid nitrogen is a really useful place to store balloons and cells, because you can fit a balloon that shouldn't fit in this container right inside there. How does that work? Well, it's simple, and I'm sure you guys understand that what I'm doing is I'm actually freezing the air in this balloon, turning it from gaseous to liquid. Liquid only takes up about 1/1000th the volume, right? And the balloon fits in to this little container. And what's great about it, I can take the cells out and put them out, and they're useful again. I'll put one over here for you guys to see. So again, the cells none the worse for wear for being in liquid nitrogen. I happen to also know how to make balloon animals. It's one of the few skills I've learned as an adult. And it's a great way to store balloon animals by doing it that way. I'm going to end with a modification of the vortex cannon. Instead of making a compression wave using the vortex cannon, we're going to make a compression wave using hot and cold. The most famous or most widely known compression wave that is about the meeting of hot and cold is, of course, thunder. When lightning strikes, it's incredibly hot. The air around it is cold. It forms a compression wave we all hear. What I'm going to do is have hot and cold meet in this container. I got to use a little bit of gravity, so I'm going to have to get up on a step stool. That makes it happen a little quicker. First, we're going to add the cold. We're going to make sure we have plenty of cold inside this container. What I need you guys to do is listen. Much of this effect is sound. There is a little bit of visual you might notice as well. Ready? A little bit of compression waves. I've hoped I managed to inspire and interest you in this field. One thing you should have learned at least. I get to do this for a living. And if you don't think a job in biotech can be a lot of fun, then I didn't do my job. Thank you very much for your attention.